Happy hobby. I'm David Johnson. We are back into our buying sports cards on eBay tips series. And you've already learned about buying it now and sending offers and auctions and all that good stuff. Today, we're talking about examining sellers a little bit more closely, figuring out who are the good sellers and who are the bad sellers as you're going through looking for a specific card. Say you pull up a Pete Rose 1964 card and you want to figure out who's a good seller and who's a bad seller. I'm going to help you out with that. So first, when you pull up a group of listings, there's a few things that will jump out at you right away. They'll tell you someone's a good seller. For instance, if they have a top rated ribbon next to them, that means they're one of the top rated sellers on eBay. That's a big deal. If they have like a logo like Probstein has a logo on all of his sales, or Four Corner Sports Cards, like those guys, they're selling sports cards all the time. They're safe to deal with, certainly. Another thing to look out for is authenticity guaranteed, which is by eBay. What that means is eBay is guaranteeing that that card that they're selling on there is authentic. And what happens is the seller you'll pay for the card. The seller will send the card to eBay. eBay will immediately look at it, confirm that it's authentic, and then ship it to you. And you'll get it in a really cool looking box. It's pretty sweet. It's a really cool setup that they've just recently figured out. And then what happens is your funds are then released to the seller. So it's actually a really cool deal for the seller, because now I just sold a Mickey Mantle on there that I normally would just put up there as here's Mickey Mantle. But they automatically put on that authenticity guarantee, which is pretty awesome because it shows it's authentic. It shows I'm a reliable seller. They'll get the card that they're buying. That's the card that they want. That's the card they're going to get. So now we're going to look at specifically the seller themselves. When you go onto a listing, their name or their little handle. If their handle next to it's going to have a star, and depending on the color of that star, tells you how long they've been selling or how much they've sold. So like a yellow star is actually somebody that's very new, very few sales on eBay. And as the colors go on, I think it goes then to blue and I think to red. So you can know from that how much they've sold on here, but also the number next to their handle or next to that star gives you an indication of how many sales they've made on eBay and how much feedback they've gotten back. So somebody that has 11 sales, maybe you're a little more cautious of buying something expensive from them. Maybe it's a $10 card. You should be safe with that, because nobody's going through all this trouble just to scam somebody out of a $10. I just realized Frank made a mess over there and I didn't clean it up. So I apologize for Frank's mess. That's not me. Baby Yoda. See, look, he knows. He knows. He knows what he did. Yeah, so if you're going to buy a $10 item, they're not trying to scam you out of 10 bucks. If it's a $300 item or even a $200 item, they only have like 10 sales on there or less. Like that could be a setup where they've sold a bunch of like $3, $5 items just to get 11 or 10, 11 sales. And then they start putting a bunch of $200 items that they have no intention on sending out. That might be a scam. So be aware of that. But when it's a small number and you're buying a small priced card, you should be safe. But if you see someone on there with like 10,000 sales or even 1,000 sales, like I've been on there for 10 years and I only have like 200 and something sales. So think about that. If they've got like 1,000 sales, that's pretty great. They should be safe. But that's when you look at the percent underneath them, the percent of positive feedback, their rating on how many positive feedbacks they've had. So if that percentage is 100%, that means no one has ever given them a negative feedback. That's a good seller to buy from, especially if they've got a large amount of sales under their name and 100% feedback. That's pretty great. Frank's just like, okay, the other thing you want to think about is if it's 99 point something percent, well, then you got to start thinking, all right, so somebody's giving them some bad feedback. If it's like 95%, that means a few people have given them feedback. So what you can do is you click on that feedback number and it'll show you their feedback, their recent feedback. It'll show like the last month, last 6 months, last year. And you can see, oh, they haven't had any negative feedback in the past 6 months or the past year. So that must have been something down the line way back when that somebody complained about. But say there's 4 negative feedbacks in the past 6 months, it takes a little more investigation. Now you want to click on that button that shows how many negative feedbacks they have, and it'll bring up and it'll show you Okay, here's what the feedback was, why it was negative. 4 negative feedbacks in 6 months, that's kind of high. If it's 1 or 2, check out the feedback. It might be something stupid, and maybe it's a dumb buyer that did something stupid, but they're complaining and they did a bad feedback on the seller. And the seller probably responded to that buyer. So you want to make sure you check and read what the feedbacks are before you make a decision on not buying from someone. You also want to go ahead and click on all of their sales. Click on everything that they have listed. You click on their name and all sales, and you'll see all the different stuff they're selling. If they're only selling the one card and everything else they're selling is like shoes and clothing and all this other stuff, that's kind of a warning sign, only in that you don't know, like they may not know how to package it to send to you. Like they might be dealing with other stuff. They've never dealt with cards before. So, and they might be describing it as, oh, it's in mint condition, but people that don't deal with cards don't understand what mint condition means, or they say excellent and it's really like fair. So you want to be careful with that. Just remember this last tip before you go. If you have a question about a product, a question about a card specifically, like maybe the light's hitting it just so that you can't really see a section of send the question to the seller and just ask them, hey, is there a crease? Is there any creases on this card that you can tell? Like what I can't see with the light, the way the light's hitting. Is there a crease there? If they respond kind of vague and ambiguous, then you probably know you need to just steer clear of that guy. But they might be direct. No, that's just a bad picture. There's no creases. It looks good. It's a solid picture, solid card. It's fine. So now when you buy it, you do have recourse through eBay. Say, hey, he told me there were no creases. And look, there's obviously a crease there. Just remember that eBay will almost always side with the seller over the buyer. Just don't be stupid with your complaints. And if the seller is happy to take it back as a return so you don't give them a negative feedback, just do that. Don't give them a negative feedback. And remember, we're on a happy hobby here. If you come across it's a bad situation, just do whatever you can to make it a good situation. Send it back, move on, everybody's happy. Now, if they refuse to take it back and they're legitimately pulled one over on you, then you want to make sure you let eBay know, and then eBay will take care of it and hopefully get you your money back. All right, so we talked about all those other things. Buy it now, sending offers, auctions, all that stuff. We just did examining sellers closely. Now the next video we're going to do, taking a look at how to search for cards in a better way. What's the best way to search for the cards you want? We're going to talk about that in our next series. So make sure you have a happy hobby.